breathe. I'm here.
There
We're
it
here
is.
for a
We got it.
purpose.
Right.
It's not everyone
Got
is.
it.
Right.
You know, and what are we going to do with our lives? And
was
that's
this right
amazing that you felt led to do that. That is amazing.
Well, like I said, we don't question why the good Lord puts us on a path. It's just that's what happens.
And share the name of the organization so if our viewers would like to.
Right. Once again, it's Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, FBHA, and our website is, of course, www.ff, like firefighter, B is in Bravo, HA.org.
Guess what?
What?
Nothing was heard, but we're back.
What?
Well, we're back.
Nothing was heard?
Nothing was heard.
Oh, well, he said some fabulous things. Are
All
you
right, we're going to
serious?
revisit, encapsulate
Then we
when
have
the
to.
Saints go
We-
marching in. That's done. That was their song.
We heard that. They
you
heard
saw
that.
it, but you didn't hear it. And after that,
Nothing else was heard.
we introduced Jeff Dill,
This is
Captain Jeff Dill.
Captain Jeff
And
Dill.
let's encapsulate what was discussed.
This is the first time at our new studio.
And it happens, right?
No,
And it
actually, it's my
happens.
second time. You were in Jersey with your mom and sister last week.
Yes, because I stayed a few extra days to
Oh, very
help
good.
Mom clean closets and
Nice.
shop and do things like that.
I was with Steve McAllister, but now we're with Jeff Dill. So let's quickly
Jeff, you have to share
encapsulate
again.
Jeff's story.
No problem. I
Okay.
was born and raised in Rochester, New York in 1961. It's just I spent 18 years out in Rochester. Didn't want to work at Kodak, even though bless my dad and who did it for many, many years, and my mom at times. Just didn't want to work inside a factory. I need to be out and about. And so I moved to West Dundee, Illinois in 1979, right after high school. And that a few months later, I was at home waiting for a phone call from a friend, a girlfriend, and which I guess was more important to me than her. But my uncle said, "Hey, why don't you go to a party? Let's come to a good friend of mine's his 50th birthday." And I said, "All right, I'll go." And that's where I met my lovely bride. We just celebrated 40 years this past November.
Well, that's funny. You were waiting for another girlfriend's phone call?
Right.
You know what that reminds
That's
me
a
of?
riot.
Romeo and Juliet. Romeo was crying over Rosalind
Right.
when
Right.
he met Juliet.
Juliet.
And then
Things
Wherefore
happen, right?
Wherefore art thou?
now Romeo.
Right,
Yes.
and we met on November 17th of 1979, and we got married November 15th of 1980. We had our daughters, Emily, in 1982, and Erica in 1984. We now have, 4 beautiful grandchildren. They all come from Emily, too. My son-in-law and Emily. My youngest daughter, Erica, is not married, but they live in Phoenix. And so, it's funny where life takes you. And so when I moved out to Illinois, I started working. My wife and I, we got married. I started working as a truck driver for a school district. We started building our house when a neighbor said, "Hey, we need some volunteers for the fire department." And I said, "Oh, sure, I'll give it a try," because I've done a lot of things in my life. Real estate, broadcasting. I used to interview Michael Jordan down in Chicago at the Chicago
How was
Stadium.
that?
Oh, he was always the last. He was always the last to be interviewed because he came out in his $1,000 suits, and it was what a great spokesman. He just was truly professional. It was an honor to interview and talk to him.
Well,
We used to sit underneath the backboard, the news media, and when he'd come in for a dunk, I mean, the power that you just felt as he leapt from the free throw line to dunk those is just incredible.
To us, we saw him in person. It's like he didn't even look like, he looked like an avatar. What we
gazelle.
call avatars
Right.
now. It was
Didn't
just,
he?
he was different.
we went, my brother's sons, when they were 8 and 10, 10 and 12, they would go to the basketball camp that Michael Jordan would have
Okay.
in Santa Barbara. And he would bring in other professionals to be the coaches, like
Nice.
Charles Barkley.
Right.
But at night, all of the coaches would play each other.
Nice.
And we would watch Michael Jordan. He was in his
Mid-30s.
Mid-30s then,
Just
playing with
taking
some of
these
the young
All-Americans to school.
Right.
it was almost as actors watching, they when you do the give me the key exercise, there's different strategies. If you don't get it this way, you try another way. You always
Right.
try a verb
You saw that in the
to
games.
pursue, to plead. You just use a verb. Well, we would watch him. If he couldn't get it dribbling down, then he'd do another tactic. He was amazing.
He was the Bobby
He was
Fischer
amazing.
of basketball.
He could do
He
so
was
much.
amazing,
He just
right?
incredible. And I don't know if that was before his baseball career or afterwards, because remember, he left to go play baseball.
That was before it.
Okay, it was
Yeah, that
before.
was
No, when we saw him,
Yeah.
it was after his
Oh, it
baseball
was?
It was
career.
after his baseball
Okay.
career, okay,
He
because then he came back in.
Yeah. No, he was he was like 35.
He was like a gazelle. He was otherworldly.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, when I was a sports director for a radio station in Elgin, Illinois, so I would cover the White Sox games and then the Bulls games. But, like I said, we've done so much in our lives, and I've been truly blessed. When I was sports director, the professional bowling tour came into town. And so they had a charity fundraiser, and I got to bowl with guys like Marshall Holman and Mark Roth. And then we went to the Hyatt for dinner, and my wife, we'd enjoy it and things. And then, then in 1995, Palatine Rural Fire Department was founded. It was in Inverness, Illinois. And I was 33 at the time, and I thought maybe I'll try, see if I can get on. And I was fortunate to be a founding member. And it moved on forward from there.
Oh, so that was that was after you had been a volunteer fireman.
I was still.
You still
right.
were, and then
Right.
was it the same department or
No, different department.
Yeah.
Right. So, and within the first year, I was moved up to lieutenant. A few years later, captain, battalion chief, and in 2012, I was promoted to assistant chief. But if we step back into 2011. That's when my wife moved down to Phoenix. She had our daughters had moved down there. Our first grandchild had moved down there.
That does it.
And so my oldest daughter at that time worked for United. And I said to her, well, I'm traveling. I'm working every third day. So, I knew 10 years from what day I'm working. So you work 24, 48. I said, why don't you move down to work so you're not by yourself all the time?
Yes, and with a grandbaby
absolutely.
and helping your daughter.
Absolutely. And so that's, I was working, like I said, as a battalion chief. My daughter worked at United, so I had free airfare.
Yes,
Right.
So
yes.
that was no problem. When I took a day off, that's 5 days off. So it worked out really well until the following year when I got promoted to assistant chief, and they put me on days. Well, that really limited my ability to do my workshops across the United States, and we'll talk about FBHA in a second, as well as see my family. So that lasted 1 year. In 2013, I went back to my chief. We had an opening on Engine 36. We lost a firefighter to a shoulder injury. And I said, do you mind if I go back to my tested position, which was captain? And that's why I retired as a captain, because it was very important for me to see my family, but also to travel across the United States to help educate my brothers and sisters about suicide and behaviors and addictions, PTSD. And it's amazing how God works, because she moved down in May of 2011. And then on August 8th of 2011, our granddaughter was diagnosed with cancer. And now that's...
How old was she?
She was 22 months. And it was... it's something that you never get over. You just don't. And that was my PTSD at the time. Because being a firefighter, what happened was she went to the doctor. My wife and my daughter, Emily, took her to the doctor for what we thought was lazy eye. And the doctor came in, he looked at the eye and stepped back out and came back in. He says, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I think Lily has retinoblastoma, cancer of the eye. And so I know exactly where I was on that afternoon, that morning, when my daughter Emily called and said, Dad, Lily has cancer. Lily has cancer. Well, we're all challenged in our lifetime. We all are. And it's how you handle that helps your recovery. I can tell you right now, I did not handle it very well. And so I flew out there that afternoon, and they took her to Phoenix Children's Memorial, met Dr. Ann Leverant, who was a specialist in retinoblastoma, and said, 50% of her globe is encapsulated. And this is my little PSA whenever I talk about it, because it affects children 0 to 7. It can be in one eye, it can be both eyes. And the telltale sign is when you take a picture, you usually get red eye. Well, with Lily, it was red in the left and white in the right. It was the flash bouncing off the tumor in her eye. We went back 8 months and could see that white in her eye. And so 1 week later, they had it scheduled where she was going to have her eye removed, completely removed. And I have a video of her playing in the nursing station right before. And every time I watch it, it still brings a tear to my eye. And when the doctor picked her up, to hear my daughter wail like I'd never heard anyone in my life will haunt me forever. But that's not what really bothered me at the most. Was my thought process, hey, I'm supposed to do something here. I'm supposed to do something to save that eye, because the firefighter in me says, you help and save things, and here's my granddaughter, and I couldn't do a darn thing. So I began to isolate. It was a struggle because I lived by myself, and I was working. I began to isolate, and it was a real issue for me, and I couldn't tell anyone that I was struggling. I mean,
You're the brave hero.
I'm the father. I'm the husband, the grandfather,
The captain.
or the battalion chief at that time. The battalion chief at that time. I'm a licensed counselor. I'm the founder of Firefighter Behavioral Health. I couldn't let anyone know I was struggling. And it was difficult time period, because my wife had her the two girls and my grandson excuse me, my granddaughter.
She had a support group around her.
Absolutely, and I didn't have anything, and so it was a struggle.
And firefighter, you couldn't share it amongst yourselves.
No, I really didn't.
Guys.
Yeah, I just really
women.
didn't want to share any of that information with them. They knew that that's why I went down there. It was Lily was having.
So that's
that
so
eye
classic.
removed.
You did tell them about your cousin Tommy.
My cousin Tommy, 9/11.
He was I don't think they heard that before.
He was a firefighter. My young cousin, I'd say in his late 20s, maybe early 30s, possibly. And it was 9/11, and he was off that day. But the firehouse got called, so he immediately got in his car, but followed them. They were able to get through the bridge, but because he
Brooklyn
wasn't
Bridge.
in the truck, they wouldn't allow him.
They wouldn't let him cross the bridge
So he
without
went
the
around,
truck.
and they all perished, and he was the one that put the bodies in the truck.
He parked his truck, ran across the bridge,
Right.
and by the time he got to the trade center, about a mile away, mile and a half,
His whole
it
house.
was down.
Right.
And he was carrying his friends' bodies out to the barge.
And he had to go. He did get a priest, and because Father Judge had died as well,
Right.
and he went to the families, but he
took a
would
toll.
share with my mother, why me? Why am I still here? The guilt.
Took him a
He's
long
doing
time.
well now.
Very powerful emotion, guilt.
But you wonder. and
Right.
you just
Survivor's
have-
guilt.
Survivor's guilt, right?
Right.
You know.
Absolutely, and we've had, unfortunately, especially officers who have taken their lives because of that.
So you never hear about that.
They were in command of an incident where they lost a firefighter on a line of duty death or something, and they've just felt it was their issue. And so, and Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, which I'm founder of FBHA, and that whole story started in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit. And it was devastating. The Division I outside of Chicago sent down numerous firefighters, including a couple from our department. And when they came back, I was talking to them. They were showing me pictures of bodies in the streets they were picking up, and the animals and devastation. And they struggled. And so they went to counselors, good people, the counselors, but they just didn't understand our culture. And that was our problem, because we never let anyone in talk
Right.
about our culture.
Firemen are known for imbibing a bit
Well, and the thing is,
in their off hours.
Right.
And that's as medicating, of course.
right, absolutely. And so they struggled.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided to go back and get my master's degree, and I became a licensed counselor. And in 2009, I founded Counseling Services for Firefighters. I was training counselors and chaplains. Hey, you want to work with us? You need to understand us. Our world's a little different, our language, our beliefs. When in 2010, I started receiving emails and phone calls from all over the world. In fact, an author from Finland contacted me, and she said, I'm writing a book about first responder suicides in Finland, and she wanted to interview me. So I said, okay, that's fine. So thank God she called, because I'm sure it would have been a nice long distance, Bill. She sent me the book many months later. It's gorgeous. It's in Finnish. I don't understand a word it says.
Oh, no.
But I see Jeff Dill in English there, so I know I'm in that book. But they all had the same question. Is anyone tracking firefighter suicides? And I found real quickly through all the fire organizations in Washington that no one was. And so FBHA was founded. We had 3 goals: educational workshops. We have a scholarship program for children of fire and EMS. And then we have an annual weekend retreat for family survivors. And so from 2012 to about 2019, because 2020 COVID washed everything out, I was averaging over 100,000 air miles. We never solicited for any workshops. Departments would hear me speak at conferences or other departments, and they would bring us in. So I've been to every state except Hawaii and 5 provinces.
How'd you finance it?
By our workshops. We have to charge for our workshops, but otherwise it's been a struggle. There's been many times I've written our board saying, hey, I think we'll have to close, because people, manufacturers in the fire service, they would say, Jeff, man, we love what you're doing, but it's suicide. That's a negative connotation against our business, so we don't know. Or they'd say we give to the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, which is for line of duty deaths, which is great, but they don't do what we do. And so believe me, there's been many times my wife and I have talked to the good Lord, but he gets it done. He gets it done. Somehow we get a nice donation from a business or something, and Mission Barbecue out of Hagerstown, Maryland. They have, over the last 3 or 4 years, have donated close to $30,000 to our mission.
How nice.
I did Grease, the show Grease, in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Oh, did you? Really nice.
And it was a fairly depressed community.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't recognize it now. It's pretty built up. So.
What is a conference like? What from morning till evening? Is it a weekend, or is it a?
We do it any time because volunteers. Understand, in the fire service, about 70% of all the 1.1 million firefighters in the United States are volunteers.
Amazing.
And so we tailor it to what their needs are. Like this weekend, I'm heading out to Ohio. We're doing 2 workshops on Saturday morning because that works out best for their fire department. So we tailor to their needs. We keep our workshops as cheap as we can, as cheap as we can, because that money then is raised to do our annual weekend retreat, which costs us about $20,000 a year for the family survivors. But like I said, the good Lord gets it done for us. And I mean, for a small little organization, we're a little non-for-profit, 501c3. We've been around now, going on our 11th year. And
wow.
So
where he guides, he provides.
Absolutely he does. And so, I think that's just hopefully his way of saying, hey, thanks, Jeff, for helping out, your brothers and sisters. Because I get the phone calls every week, people struggling, looking for counselors. Yes. Unfortunately, I'll get calls from fire chiefs that, Jeff, I'm en route to a scene where we just lost a member. What am I supposed to say? Oh. And so
a member to suicide?
Right. Who took their lives. And so based on this experience, for the last 10, 11 years, we stay pretty busy. And now we're doing more and more virtual Zoom workshops as well for organizations.
Well, we'll come perform at your retreat. When they're having dinner, we'll do a little dinner show.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, uplifting material.
We'll have to think about that because...
and then wait. You have to get your tap number ready. We have to get your solo.
I don't know about that.
Because I am his tap teacher. I don't know if that came in, if that was lost earlier on.
We'll have to work on that, but that would be a great surprise, wouldn't it?
You are going to do, you are doing a solo.
Well, and the reason you say that...
a trio with the 2 of us.
Which is fabulous because we always hold it in the 3rd week of May. And we had 6 successful years. Our first one was in Savannah, Georgia. So we go to different spots. Well, we were supposed to be in the Alabama Gulf Shores this past May. But unfortunately, COVID took care of it. But a lot of families said, man, we'd still like to get together. So we held one in Branson.
Oh, nice. Because that's where we are.
Yes.
We're here in Branson, Missouri.
So people took some big trips to get to Branson?
They did. They drove or they flew. And we decided to have some entertainment. And we had CJ. From the CJ show, and of course
Americana Theater with Terry.
With Terry.
She goes to our church,
yes.
Woodland Hills.
And Terry is a good friend of ours, and so he came and did his little comedy spiel.
Oh yes, and the omnipresent.
They absolutely loved it.
Terry's
and
fabulous.
So because we don't want to make it a weekend where it's depressing and things. We want to uplift and hope.
Yes,
for
inspirational.
Absolutely for those family
with
survivors.
Hope and inspiration. Absolutely.
And they absolutely loved it. And we've tried some fundraisers. Nashville, there's been a couple of firehouse conferences, and we either rented a booth or I was speaking there. So a couple years ago, we tried to do a fundraiser, and we got Colin Ray to be our headliner.
Who is he, Colin Ray?
Colin Ray, country music.
Oh, We're
I
not country
even
people
knew.
yet.
I knew Colin Ray.
Well, you don't
How
know.
did you? What?
I did.
How?
I know.
From the 90s.
I just know these
No.
things. Eileen, my sister and Mike know all kinds of music, so
okay.
that's how I know.
Yeah.
She
Col-
heard of him.
I heard of him.
Colin Ray was just at his concert was fabulous.
Mm.
But the problem is we could not get enough sponsors. So I think we made like in fact, we might even lost money on that one. But so we thought, well, we'll try it again the following year, and we did a little bit better. We had Pam Tillis.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but we started realizing it was expensive to bring them in, and so we.
Well, we'll work very cheap.
We're really inexpensive. Sorry to say.
Because you're doing a solo or a trio.
You'll play for a song and a
Yeah.
dance, right?
We'll put our little bucket out.
We don't like to pay to play, but we're in the ballpark.
Well, this one will be a smaller one. Where
are you going to have it this time?
Orlando.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So
Very
my
nice.
wife finds
The
we
sites.
we have a 14-bedroom house because they like being together.
Yes,
they like
intimacy.
eating together, talking together,
Like
and
a
things.
retreat.
Right, absolutely. So we'll be in Orlando the third week, but on that Friday, and it's been 6 annual Fridays, we hold what we call We Remember Night. And we go down to the local fire department, and it's already prearranged. I've spoken to the chiefs, and they pull their rigs out, and they run their lights for 1 minute as our families stand out there with pictures and candles of their loved ones.
How nice is
And
that?
we've had bagpipe players play Amazing Grace. And
That's like cheating.
we
That's
it's tough.
amazing.
And so we had
Wow.
we typically get anywhere between 500 to 900 departments across the United States and Canada that join us. They pull their rigs out, run lights. Big departments like San Diego, Denver, Seattle. So they join us as well. They pull their rigs out and run their lights for 1 minute at 9:00 local time for them.
Wow.
So it's and it means so much to the families that
does.
hey, we will not forget them. So, but this is what we do. FBHA, Firefighter Behavior Health Alliance. We are still the only organization that tracks all fire, military, wildland, and career volunteer departments, as well as EMS and dispatcher suicides. So,
Firefighter Behavioral Health
Alliance.
Got it.
And it's ffbha.org. And like I said, we don't know why the good Lord puts us on certain paths.
Now you
Yes.
it's interesting that I don't know if you said it before, if it was recorded. Why you got into the families of those who had already committed suicide is very specific. That and I'm sure you do an aspect of preventing suicide as well.
Right.
I don't know if did he say exactly why you got that vision, especially for the family, those who had already committed suicide, for the families.
Well, the families. I had first met a father up in Illinois, and he talked about his pain and things, and I started realizing, there's nothing here for these people, and so we wanted to create this Facebook group of family survivors. We wanted the retreat
Because they do it for soldiers. It's a big thing with soldiers.
Well, we didn't want them to feel like they're alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because no one ever talked about firefighter suicide. So,
I've no.
so they're thinking, well, is my son or my spouse, my
Yeah.
wife, the only one out there? And we
Yes.
wanted them to know that
You're
you're
not
not
alone.
alone. Absolutely. And it's amazing because after that first couple of years, we were taking back my wife because people were talking to each other. They were sending Christmas cards to each other. So that bonding.
Yes,
And like they say, it's a family that they're glad they're there, but no one wanted to be. No one wanted to join it.
Right.
And so when we look at just the reasons why my brothers and sisters, because through the validation process, I contact the fire or EMS chief. So we have validated about 65%, about 1,600 of these tragic events. About 95% of them from 2000 to 2020. In fact, we've unfortunately had 2 already in 2021. Wow. But I contact the fire and EMS chiefs, and I hear their reasons, their methods, and not only how they died, but how they lived. And we take all this data, and that's what makes us different than any other organization. Like I said, in 2010, there weren't too many organizations talking about behavioral health in the fire service, and now you go on Facebook, there's thousands, just thousands of them. And a quick side note, I was at one of the workshops a few years ago, and a young girl, I mean, young to me, it's 40. I mean, I'm 59. But she
But in
said,
Branson, we're kids
right,
still.
exactly. She says, I've been following you for years on your Facebook and your website and things. And she says, I really admire your work. She says, I consider you the grandfather of the movement in behavioral health and suicide awareness. And I looked at her, I said, well, why can't I be the father?
Yes,
Why am I the grandfather? And she turned all red and stuff. And I said, I'm only teasing with you. But it's just, you just didn't talk about it in our culture. And today we are. We still are. We have a long ways to go. There's still a lot of departments.
You always think of a firefighter going in to save others, and then if they die in the process, greater love hath no man than to lay down their life. But this, I never.
We
would
were
have thought of
admiring
it.
the Trade Center, and at 45 minutes before it got hit. And I said, so majestic,
Right.
yet so vulnerable. That's what I
Absolutely.
said as we were driving into New York to get our fingerprints for our adopting her daughter. And, and she knew what I was talking about. And that's what happened 45 minutes later. But you were a fireman at that time, right?
I was.
And did you want to go to New York? I mean, I'm sure you had felt some sort of, it had to affect you.
Well, right.
Was
I
did that
was,
feed into
right.
this
I was
whole-
on shift that day, and I walked in, and the firefighters on my shift said, "Hey, Jeff, a plane just hit the towers." And so I sat down, and all of a sudden we saw a plane hit the towers. I said, "Are they, replaying it and things?" And it was actually the second plane that hit it. And I think we all wanted to go, but we also know that that's chaos, and that's what happened. Unfortunately, people were coming from all over the country and wanting to help, which is fabulous.
Yes.
But sometimes people can get lost or hurt if they're not compensated, if they don't know that they're there for benefits, if they get hurt on the job. And so it was very difficult. I mean, it was the same like for Hurricane Katrina, Oklahoma City. You want to go, you want to help, but you have to step back at times and say, hey, there's professionals that are groups across the United States, search and rescue groups founded by fire departments, and they have firefighters from each department, and that's their job. They'll do search and rescue, they'll do trench rescue, if there's floodings and things like that. So you have to step back and let these professionals who have been training, let them do their work.
We're going to let you talk us out of here. We've got about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Just what would be your last statement that you'd like to say to the audience?
And parting words.
Yeah,
Well, I think
because you had a lot of wisdom.
Well, I think the issue is, and no matter if you're in the fire service or not, is that we all go through issues in our lives. And it's a misnomer to think that we can take care of those by ourselves. And so we need to support each other. We need to ask for help from each other. We have to learn to walk the walk with our brothers and sisters in life, because you don't have to be a fireman to struggle with depression, addictions, PTSD. And so lean on that support system. Look for that person who will be there for you. And so that's my message.
This is your full-time retirement job,
is.
I think, right? And how long have you been retired?
6 years, just a couple days ago.
So how much time does this take you to devote?
I'm 24/7. I get phone calls in the middle of the night from firefighters struggling, and so it's a 24/7.
And how does that affect you emotionally? How do you handle that? And
Well,
the
it
lack
is
of
difficult.
control of your time.
For me,
You're
because
in retirement.
Self-care is important, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. For me, I like to walk. I like to exercise. I play pickleball. Of course, a guy named Dill is going to play pickleball. Right? I started taking tap dancing.
There you go.
And but
Who's your teacher?
I just called a number in the book. But it's always the good Lord has been my Savior. And has been there to take care of me, and because I'm surrounded by death on a daily basis.
Yes,
And
yes.
so that's my support system. Of
And we're
course, my
still
wife,
here.
Karen, is just tremendous. So she's the board president. She volunteers about 30 hours a week. So that's my support system.
Thank you, Jeff. Take us
Well,
home, Peg.
we are blessed to have you.
Thank you. It was an honor.
We did not know all of this.
I apologize for
just
technical
knew
issues at the
This was
beginning.
my TAP student that is going to be doing a solo soon or a trio. So we'll keep you updated on that. And thank you.
I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming.
One last
what a
time,
blessing.
slowly. Your what is called and what the
It's Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance at www.ffbah.org. B as in Bravo, HA.org.
Yes, and greater love hath no man or woman than to lay down their lives for a friend. That's our parting
Thank
word
you, and God bless
of
you all.
knowledge.
Take care.